On April 5, 1839, in the small town of Beaufort, South Carolina, a child was born who would one day change the country. Robert Smalls, African American, was born into slavery by his mother Lydia Pope and an unknown father. Lydia Pope at the time was already a slave owned by Henry McKee. For most of Smalls' life, the only thing he ever knew to exist was being a slave. He met his wife, who was a fellow slave. He learned skills through slavery. All he ever knew was being a slave. In fact, it was not until the Civil War during 1861 that he was able to escape slavery at 23 years old. Smalls was assigned to steer the CSS Planter, a lightly armed Confederate military transport. It was at this point that he began plotting an escape. At just 23 years old, Smalls sailed the steamer past multiple Confederate checkpoints, even stopping to pick up family members along the way. Once he reached the open seas, Smalls sailed to the Union fleet and finally found freedom. As a free man, Smalls started in politics following the war, advocating for black rights. While he began by serving in the South Carolina Senate, he went on to become a United States congressman who would change the country for the better. With Smalls being a first-generation black politician serving in South Carolina, he continued to face racial discrimination. At this time in history, South Carolina was heavy with slavery, bigotry, lynchings, and so much more. However, it was also a time of change. A movement was culminating in the late 18th and early 19th centuries that aimed to end the slavery trade and then abolish the institution of slavery and emancipate enslaved people. South Carolina was also slowly adapting to African Americans, gaining more important roles in society as well as the government. On July 6, 1868, the South Carolina General Assembly was the first state legislative body with a black majority. While it was still a time of full discrimination, it was also the beginning of a new society. Despite his limited education, Robert Smalls made many notable contributions to United States history. Throughout his time as a politician, he not only participated in many bills and military heroism, but he pushed boundaries by advocating for black lives in a time full of discrimination. Following his heroic act on May 12, 1862, when he and other enslaved crew members escaped slavery, Smalls was recognized for his bravery and skill. As a result, Smalls became one of the first African American pilots in the United States Navy. This was the beginning of a long career in the government. Smalls continued to fight for equality for African Americans throughout his political career. While serving in the U.S. House of Representatives, he fought tirelessly against segregation of the military, railroads, and restaurants. He continuously opposed plans to relocate African Americans to Liberia, all while serving on several important committees. One of the most notable accomplishments of Smalls was his passing of legislation that created the Parris Island Marine Corps Base near Beaufort, South Carolina. Parris Island Base was the first independent Marine Corps base in the nation. It was crucial at the time due to the start of World War I. However, his work did not stop in Congress. Following his time in Congress, Robert Smalls was appointed Collector of Customs in South Carolina. However, due to racism and discrimination still running rampant in the South, he faced a lot of opposition from local white politicians. Despite this, he held the position for approximately 20 years. Robert Smalls proved himself to be a man of extraordinary character, from his daring escape from the Confederacy and enlistment in the Union Army and Navy, which served as an important precedent for African American service in the military, to his later work in politics fighting for the rights of black Americans. His work fighting for the rights of African Americans was not only admirable, but incredibly courageous, considering he acted under the threat of violence. It is no secret that the contributions of Robert Smalls to the United States make him a true hero. There are countless reasons why Robert Smalls should be studying in U.S. history classes. As seen, Robert Smalls spent approximately one-third of his life as an enslaved person, yet he did not let that interfere with his work to be done in the United States. He overcame adversities and was also able to make a long-lasting impact on our country. Robert Small's journey is both heroic as well as powerful. His story gives not only African Americans but every other minority group hope. While he was not the first African American congressman, he escaped slavery and used his power to fight for Black lives. He was a daring hero who risked his life for his fellow soldiers and family during the war. Smalls also shared compassion unto others, even in a time when others were not compassionate towards him. From not only fighting tirelessly for equality, but also allowing the wife of his former master to live with him and his family in the house he had purchased. Smalls led a remarkable life that continues to be an inspiring example of righteousness, achievement, and service.